Okay, so we're back with some questions and topics related to interesting halachic discussions that came up this week. The first is regarding the halachos of prosthetic limbs, which continues to be a frontier, and of course requires a deep understanding of technology. There have been some tshuvos written recently, unfortunately, lo aleinu, as a result of the ongoing war in Eretz Yisrael. This becomes even more pressing of an issue. But understanding the technology is really important because now they have prosthetics which are both controllable by thought and are also detachable, meaning the prosthetic hand can be detached from the wrist and still operate as a hand. Think like Adam's family. It's fascinating to consider the halachic implications of those innovations, and obviously, those kinds of questions have to be directed to a posek who really understands the inner workings of the technology. The second items that I want to talk about really to me are kind of connected, at least in my mind. First of which was a question that came up in conversation this Shabbos. The question was basically, is energy healing kosher? I am not an expert on this topic by any means. I will tell you my knee-jerk reaction was that this is like primo avodah zarah. Um, and then I looked into it, and yeah, that's pretty much what it is according to most of the poskim that I was able to find. The person that brought this topic up on Shabbos claimed that certain well-known rabbis told her that it was permitted. I'm not going to get into names and maybe, there's a special case for this individual. I don't know. But there's literally a whole book from Rav Belsky on why this is usher. However, and this is not a small however, Rav Eliezer Malamed is on record as permitting it as long as there are no rituals, no crystals, anything like that. So I took the time to read what he published, and it seems to me that this is one of those situations where people are doing it anyway, and the posik is like, let's figure out how to make sure that they're kind of avoiding outright idolatry. So he gives all kinds of conditions and says it doesn't conform to medical norms, so really it should be forbidden, but it's like wearing an amulet. In other words, like there's a placebo effect that we tolerate, and that's kind of why he was comfortable permitting it. But again, the consensus of poskim, Rev Eliashiv, Rav Belsky I mentioned, Rav Moshe Tendler certainly. You can look these up for yourselves. Um, do not permit, and don't just not permit. They really view this as a type of avodah zarah. Um, energy and auras relating to pagan concepts. Um, there are like adjunct questions here related to doing Tai Chi, things like that. I'm not going to get into that whole topic. The last topic that I do want to get into is one that's pretty dear to me after having operated a ketamine clinic for 2 years and seeing how much good it can do for the right people and in the right setting. The question is really boiling down to this idea of like, should there be a bracha on legal recreational drug use? Obviously, emphasis on legal. Um, there is of course, there's a bracha on, let's say, someone consumes mushrooms, right? So you have to make a bracha on that, whether or not you enjoy the taste, whether or not you're eating it for nutritional content. But the question is really trying to tease out is is recreational use something that is tied to spiritual pursuits or not? Meaning, would you make a shechianu, a tov ha'metiv? Is there um, is there a halachic guideline in this usage that says yes, because it doesn't violate the law of the land, doesn't violate the Torah, it's not doing something that's necessarily harmful. Obviously, again, all those conditions have to be true. But if in fact they are all true, is there a an additional bracha besides the whatever it is the person's consuming, the ayahuasca, whatever it may be? Anyway, these are some of the interesting questions and thoughts for the week. Please feel free to share comments. Answers are always welcome, and look forward to speaking to you again next week.